you know, my mom's 92. She lives with me. But she's an Irish Catholic, and she thought if she wasn't a Democrat, she'd go to hell. I don't believe that, but, you know, where she comes from, to be Irish was to be Catholic, was to be a Democrat, Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so I never even thought about the Republican Party. Look, folks, you know, what I probably should say is I agree. Because, John, you not only made a great speech, you laid out clearly what makes me admire you so much, which has made us friends from the day you got to the United States Senate. And I have to say, by the way, one of my closest buddies, and I'm a big transportation guy, a big Amtrak guy. Amtrak wouldn't be running, rails wouldn't be going without Frank Lautenberg. I'll tell you what, Frank. And Senator, it was a lovely introduction you gave John, and he deserves it all. Look, folks, you know, it's great to be here with one of the best partners that Barack and I have in the country, a governor who really does, I know it sounds corny, but really does share the same values. The thing that motivates, it all starts with this guy here and goes to here and then to here. Unfortunately, he has, you know, all three are matched. They're all excellent. His gut, his heart, and his head. You know, we need folks like John today. And what we need basically is what we've always needed. We need smart, honest, serious, tough politicians who get it. I mean, who just get it, who understand why people, you know, sometimes when I listen to people standing up talking about unemployment rates and about illness and all the rest, I get a sense that they intellectually understand it, but I don't get a sense that it's what motivates them. I don't mean they're bad folks, they're good folks. Even the ones with, there's a lot of folks out there with good ideas. But the difference about John, and the reason why I told John early on I'd come as often as he wanted me to New Jersey, was because John feels it. He not only gets it, he feels it. You know, John's the kind of guy you've all have watched. He has the courage to tackle tough problems. He doesn't run away. John doesn't shy away when things get tough. He's willing to look problems square in the eye and not kick them down the road. The tendency, most people have meetings in government, and Democrats and Republicans as well, and sit there, how can I avoid this? How can I avoid making this decision? How can I put this off? It's a lot easier for John to have not done some of the things that he's done, fought to keep going. Just a lot easier to go out there and figure we got to cut this budget and go across the board and cut into the things that he cares about, that you care about. You know, the people, in my experience, I've been hanging around for 8 presidents now. People in my experience have been tested by fire are usually the only ones that can light a fire. They're only ones who know how to get things moving. Folks, we're living through the worst economic times. It's not hyperbole. These are the worst economic times, as John pointed out, in the last 80 years. The worst economic times since the Great Depression. Again, that's not a political statement. Unfortunately, it's a statement of fact. And we're going to come out of this. We're coming out of it. We're on the path to recovery. It's been real hard, and it's going to be hard for a while longer. But ladies and gentlemen, the president knows how tough it is. I know how tough it is, and so does John. Now, John's opponents want you to believe that somehow this recession was invented in New Jersey. I mean, it's kind of amazing. You know, look, this is no, it's not a national, it was an international recession, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you may recall that early on in our administration, I was not badly, but somewhat criticized for calling this the Great Recession. I wasn't engaging in hyperbole. I was trying to make the fundamental point. This is the worst recession America's had short of a depression. Yes. This has been a worldwide recession. And New Jersey, because you had been doing so well, The states that were doing the best got hit the hardest. It was the longest fall, the furthest to fall. The states that weren't doing very well, they're hurting, but they haven't fallen as far. It's because of all the great work that you've done. You know, people forget, the month the president and I got sworn into office, that month, we were greeted with the announcement that we lost 740,000 jobs, almost within a week after we raised our right hand that we were sworn in. Credit markets were frozen. Housing values were plummeting. Major banks, as you'll remember, John, they weren't talking about whether or not they were going to get right. They were talking about they're going to have to shut their doors. I mean, literally. One of the early discussions we had in Chicago in preparation for the administration, our transition team out there, we got together, I think it was 30, 35 economists, all left, right, center. And what did we talk about? The first question they wanted to raise with us is whether we might have to call a bank holiday on the day after we were sworn in. Ladies and gentlemen, the president and I weren't back there blaming Jon Corzine then. You know what we were doing? We were on the phone calling Jon Corzine, literally. I literally picked up the phone and called Jon Corzine and said, John, what do you think we should do? The reason why we called John is because we knew he knew about the economy, about world markets, about how we had to respond, unlike almost anyone we knew. And because he had been in the pit, he had been in the furnace, and we trusted his judgment. And everybody kind of forgets this. But what we heard from John is what we needed to do. And what we needed to do, we needed a serious economic recovery plan. John had already, no, I'm not doing this for applause. It's all just, as he used to say, ain't brag, man, just facts, just the facts. The facts were, John, leading your legislature, was already moving in New Jersey on an economic stimulus package before anybody else was. But John knew what other governors know, but many didn't acknowledge, that it wasn't sufficient. No state was big enough. As strong and as wealthy and as powerful as your state, no state was big enough to be the economic engine for national growth. So John suggested and laid out, and we talked a long time about what the elements of the recovery package nationally should be. We knew without a national package it wouldn't work, and John was right. You talk about Christie being wrong, I could start a mantra where John was right. John was right about this. So folks, we acted, and we passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act with only a couple votes to spare. And then we began the process. We have pulled back from the brink. Is everything all right? No. But we're no longer talking about whether there may be a depression. We're talking about the shape of recovery. That's what we're talking about. Instead of closing the doors, many of those major banks are paying back the money. $70 billion have been paid back so far at a multi-billion-dollar profit, which we deserve, the taxpayers. $50 billion more is about to be paid back in the next 12 to 15 months. But more than that, the American people have already begun to see that the money is going to come back into the Treasury just the way it should be. Ladies and gentlemen, housing values, which had fallen for 36 straight months, finally stopped collapsing. In June and July, we saw home prices rise for the first time in 3 years. And last week, long way to go. A lot of people still in trouble. A lot of people still in trouble. A lot of people still facing foreclosure. Ladies and gentlemen, last week, the stock market went above 10,000. Remember the discussion just a couple months earlier about whether it's going to go below 6,000? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the beginning. It didn't just happen overnight. It began because of the economic policies that John on a state level and we on a national level put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, 35% of all that money lost in your 401ks is back in. Long way to go. Long way to go. But folks, and it's not just us saying this, independent verifiers on Wall Street and the economic models that are being projected by the major universities in America point out we've created a minimum of 600,000 jobs to a maximum of 1.2 million in the first 8 months. Look, people are working today who otherwise wouldn't be working. Not nearly enough. We know that. We know we won't be fully back until we're creating more jobs than we're losing every month. But think of where we would have been without Jon pushing and the president pushing for this Recovery Act. There'd be somewhere between 600 and 1,200,000 more people unemployed than there are today. And think about the Recovery Act has meant to your state. Jon made reference to it. $17.5 billion is coming into this state, $6 billion so far. 17.5. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bono, who handles the budget, imagine what her job and the legislator's job would have been without the $6 billion that's come in so far. And as it's been pointed out, just look at what your budget would have been without it. And by the way, it's not just your state, it's all across America. In the state of New Jersey, it means 35,000 new teachers. I mean, not new teachers, 35,000 teachers staying in the job, or, if you didn't take the money, raising property taxes $2 billion. Where do these guys live? Where do they live? They're talking about cutting property taxes and then talking about not taking stimulus money. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where, I know what all these guys are against. I always have trouble figuring out what they're for. As I said, think about it, what it would have meant to our kids. Jon's advice was right. And don't let anybody tell you it doesn't matter who's the governor. Ladies and gentlemen, what was the Republican reaction to the Recovery Act? Remember? Recovery reaction, their response to the Recovery Act was like all sort of the neocon economic mantra we got for the previous 8 years. They said we shouldn't do this, it was wasting money, it was a knee-jerk reaction. Okay, I think you can make a legitimate argument whether we were right or wrong. That's fair game. But ladies and gentlemen, Jon's main opponent says this was a pretty bad idea. A lot of the other guys out there on the Republican side talk about this being a bad idea. But I don't know how bad's the idea of extending unemployment benefits to people who've fallen into this black hole through no fault of their own. How bad an idea is it to make people who have lost their jobs, who also lost their health care, how bad an idea is it to keep cops on the beat and teachers in the classroom? My rhetorical question is, what would they have done? Are they against that? Just tell us. Tell us straight up. You want us not extending unemployment benefits? Would you vote no on that? Would you vote no on health care? Would you vote no on COBRA? Would you vote no on seeing to it that teachers are back in the classrooms, cops are back in the beat? Well, folks, and what about Jon's Republican opponent? Like other conservative Republicans and neoconservative governments, he actually talked about not taking some of this money. I think it was about $5 or $6 billion. I don't even know the amount. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. What are these guys for? What are they going to do? You know, I love the fact that Jon's opponents talk about how they are going to somehow cut down your health care costs. You know, think about this. Jon and the New Jersey legislature has led the fight here to try to bring insurance companies under control. Now, the entire nation is finally beginning to catch up. I'm not being facetious now. Finally beginning to catch up to New Jersey and saying, you know, we need regulations on insurance companies so they're not able to deny everything from mammogram to pre-existing conditions. I'm serious. I mean, think about it. Republicans are also in other parts of the country acknowledging this now. So what's going on here? You got an opponent who finally When the New Jersey idea is spreading across the country, he says it was a bad idea. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't get it. I don't get it. He must be drinking from a different water fountain than y'all are drinking from. I really don't get it. The entire trend is trending in the direction that John's been fighting for and New Jersey has insisted on. And you have a guy running who says that, no, now's the time to give the insurance companies more leeway in the name of making things cheaper. Ladies and gentlemen, look, we're in the midst of the worst economic recession we've seen in 80 years. And with a constitutional responsibility of balancing the budget, as John and other governors have, John not only balanced the budget, but he chose to protect the things that New Jersey residents say they value. He didn't just go in and say, I'm going to get it done. He chose to protect the things you say you value, and you proved to the nation you value by the results you produced. You know, when you talk about education, John, I know you mean it. I know it comes out of your life experience, but the interesting thing to me is it's not just about, it seems to me, preschool and early education, which, by the way, I don't know where this guy's been. For 35 years, we've been fighting and arguing that the one thing to make sure a kid has the best chance of graduating, take the same kid, same capability, put him in a quality preschool at age 4 or 5, they have an exponentially better chance of graduating than that same kid put in a quality school starting at age 6. We've known that. Now the country's awakened to it. We're doing it nationally. Other people are doing it. And it seems as though the Republican Party in this state somehow thinks that's not a good idea. I don't get it. I really don't quite understand how these guys are doing it. So here's what I look at, John. The thing that you've connected better than anybody, and I'm going to end with this because you've been all standing too long. Look, folks, this is more than about giving kids a good education. This is about making sure that New Jersey can continue to, as you have the last 20 years, to attract the biggest corporations, the highest tech folks, the cutting-edge scientific initiatives, the cutting-edge environmental issues, the cutting edge that come. Why do they come here? They don't come here because you're close to Delaware, which is important. All kidding aside, why do they come? You've got the best educated workforce in the country. That's why they come. That's why they come. And what always confuses me, John, is how these pro-business Republican candidates don't quite figure that out. They ought to talk to some business people as to why they're out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, John's and John's supporters, you're not just guaranteeing that people get a good education. You're guaranteeing that New Jersey can continue to lead the country. You're guaranteeing that the people who graduate from this community college, and I'm a gigantic fan of community colleges. My wife is a full-time teacher to community college. It is the new best alternative to this. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about making people be able to stay here in New Jersey because where the jobs are, it's where people are. You've led the country, and you can continue to lead the country. You can do it again. Look, folks, let me conclude by saying to you that, John has said he's governed in tough times. Let's give the man a chance to govern in good times. Let's give the guy a chance to govern in good times. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the deal. You know the deal. It gets down to a simple, basic proposition of getting out the vote. It gets down to going out there and what you've all done before, knocking on doors, making those phone calls, providing folks a ride to the polls. Because I have not a single doubt in my mind, I don't have any doubt in my mind, that the people of New Jersey have figured out what the alternative candidates have offered in response to Jon's initiative. But people right now, folks, people are hurting. People are down. They know Jon's right. But sometimes when you're down, you're just down. There's a lot of people here, a lot of people in the state that are in fact getting back up now because of what Jon's done and what we've been doing. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to go out. You got to go out and remind them. A lot of people are now thinking this race is over, that Jon's won now. This big wave came and it ebbed and everything's going to be just fine. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you and I know when people start thinking like that, that's a disaster. So, folks, it really is up to you. This is just old-fashioned get out the vote now. And you get out the vote, I guarantee you Jon's going to win. And mark my words, by the time Jon's second term is over, they're not only going to be talking about him as New Jersey's governor, but one of the great governors in the United States of America, because he has the ability to do it. Go get him.